Woman,
Mufumakazi,
Wansadi,
Musadi,
umfazi,
Frau.
mulher.
That is who we are. That is our strength. We are remarkable, brave, capable, unique. We are woman to woman.
Good afternoon, South Africa. Good afternoon, Africa. Good afternoon to everyone who's joining us for this last program of the month of May. And you know what? As we celebrate Mother's Day, as we somehow understand May being a more female month, we wanted to close today, this beautiful month, talking about something that is very close to us. But before, good afternoon, Precious. Good afternoon, Seal.
Good afternoon, Miss Marcia. We're happy to be here.
It's always good to have them back, though they never left.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be back.
So let us tell them what we're going to talk about. Kind of 5 years ago, 4 or 5, anyway, thereabout, we wanted to put a motto for our program. So we invited you, our faithful viewers, to vote. And we picked where values are treasured. But then it has been some time that we did not explore values. Which values? Because all of us grow with different values. Values from home, values from school, values from our government. Are we talking about only those values? I don't think so. So maybe you are having the explanation or the spirit behind our motto, and you're going to understand much better which values. My first question for them is, do you think today women, let us talk about women, they are still conservative about values?
I actually don't think so. I think with time, we actually see them detaching from values because they are more about what they think, what they want, what their view is, forgetting that when they drift away from the values, they almost lose the sense of being as a woman. And we see it with different ages because in the past we'd think it only affect the young women. But we even see now mature women throwing those values aside and saying, you know what, I will take matters into my own hands and decide this is old-fashioned and I'm different.
And we're going to talk about those values that became old-fashioned for a few of them. Mm-hmm. So, for you, I have a different question. From a very young age, you knew what you wanted in life.
Yes.
Even though you would shock teachers, you would shock people around you. Where did you get those values from?
It came from my mother, and we say it came from God. And the values that I grew up listening, and one of them that we are going to, Miss Marcia will discuss just now, is the one that stands until today, and it developed with time, even more. So the values that I got from my childhood, it impacts my life until today. So,
because in your case specifically, I have someone who had decided that she would be in the ministry at the age of 13.
yes.
And she never waved. She never looked back. And whoever would ask her, she had that definition in life. And because of the values, and now it comes the point we wanted to highlight, not just her mother's values, but because of godly values, she fulfilled her dream. And she never left, she never looked back, she never had other plans, other dreams. She engaged in her career, she worked, she studied, of course, but always as a secondary plan, because what you decided at the age of 13 was?
To become a pastor's wife and serve God. But I was not, and I'm not the strong one, because people, they think when they see someone that says, I never left my values, and I stood by my values, my decision, and they think, wow, she was so strong. I was being strong each and every day. That's what people, they need to understand. Because you need to really uphold and stand firm if you want to remain the values and the dream that I had. So until today, the values are here because I feed them. I'm focused on it. So that's how it remains. So we are not that so strong.
It's not a strength of our own.
Yes, it
starts with a decision.
Yes, it's a decision.
Of course, we're going to the streets and we're curious to hear what women out there, they think about values today. Let us watch together.
Mohandas Gandhi, he held values such as self-discipline, selflessness, and among many others, non-violence. But are these values still being upheld today? Where values are treasured. But let's talk about it. Are values still being treasured nowadays? We are here in the streets of Johannesburg, Gandhi Square, and we are here to get public opinion about what people think about values. So come with us. Which value do you think nowadays is being outdated?
I don't think there's any that has been outdated. I just think that people don't look up to or don't refer to our values of ours compared to when we were growing up. There's a lot of things happening in our communities, like people talking back, people not greeting, people not having just a common sense of these values. So I think they are just not there as we were, and especially before.
I'll make an example of like self-respect, you know, self-dignity, like the way you look at yourself, like it means a lot. It means a lot how you carry yourself, and on social media, like I said before, I'm not speaking bad about our generation, but you don't see much of it really, you know, and how someone carries themselves, how they talk, maybe how they to judge how they dress, but I mean, there's always an element of self-respect that goes to something. You know, but yeah, that's my opinion.
Unfortunately, most of the values that our mothers and grandmothers were taught back in the days are not being upheld by the women of today, our generation, which is understandable because we are women of different mindsets and perspectives, and you cannot choose one value to be prioritized by a whole group of women.
I mean, values for me, I think I grew up in a good household. So I was really taught about honoring your elders and respecting people. You know, everyone's a human being. It just depends on how respect levels and our morals really. But yeah, for me, I think I'll make an example of it. Like I'm in a taxi and an older lady comes and comes inside the taxi. It's gonna bother me inside to not stand up. So yeah, I think for me that's yeah.
And then which value do you think you still are able to see it today that you were taught back in the day?
No, I don't think there is one.
Nothing?
Nothing. I don't want to lie with you. Yeah, I don't want to lie with you.
It's the little things as greeting another person, also you meet them in the street. We don't do that, we just pass by each other, we don't care about.
I think one value for me that I want to see in my kids in the future, my sons specifically, I'd say I'd want to see respect in them. Like, not just your elders or whatnot, but just in general self-respect and respecting other people too. That takes you a long way, you know, and also being able to communicate with people like the right way.
Continue being kind, show Ubuntu. Be kind, it doesn't cost a cent. Just show kindness to them.
I mean, that was kind of expected because they all tell themselves that it's a thing of the past, it's outdated, things are different, society has moved on, and that's what maybe they've been fed. This is now their new value, that there are no values.
Oh, maybe that's the new value for them. There are no values.
Yes, so they tell themselves like, I don't need values, so that's my value. I know who I am. I'm not influenced by anybody, so I stand by what I say. And that's why they stand firm on their word.
So they think they are not influenced by anyone, and by pursuing their own values, some of them may have got into trouble. So we invite 3 of our viewers to share in a very honest way their experience. And I wanted to start with Patience. I'm not going to give you much because by her story, you're going to understand which values were broken.
My name is Patience Muke. I grew up at a very young age where faith was introduced to me by my mother. I started to learn from her the values of why is it important for me to come to the church. So my mom used to teach me how to be a woman, how to respect myself, how to value myself as a woman, how to not seek validation in a man, but for me to preserve myself as a woman. And I didn't understand at that time, how can I be able to do so? So at a very young age, I was introduced to the Sunday school. And I got to learn the importance of how to believe in God, the importance of what is required for one to have a relationship with God. So in the Sunday school, we were always taught that it's important for one not to steal. It's important for one not to lie. It's important for one to respect their family. It's important for one to be an example to others. But I never understood at that time why it was important. I remember when I lost my father at a very young age. I was 8 years old. And I didn't understand why would hurtful things happen to someone who is learning more about who God is, someone who is learning the greatness of what God has. And I never understood that in my life because my father had passed on, and that time reality was quite difficult for me to adjust to. So that had resulted in me having anger towards God. I never understood why would hurtful things happen to someone whom is learning about this great God, but I do not see him in my life. So that's when I decided now to live my own life, to do what I want, to start to not value myself as a woman, to start now to seek the validation from men, to start now to sleep around, to start now to be the governor of my own life. In what way? By drinking alcohol, by smoking cigarettes, by eating space muffin, by as well going so wild to the point of being addicted with drugs. I remember in that moment where I even got a relationship, or I was in a relationship with a gangster guy, whom at that time he used to give me money, whom used to take me out. He used to do everything that I longed for as a woman. I felt appreciated, I felt valued as a woman. But the consequences of that was for me to show to him that I loved him. And the only way that I was able to show to him is when he asked me to sleep with him. And I remember when he took me to his friend's crib. And in that crib, there were 2 of his friends. They gave us space for me to be able to show to him that I loved him, which was to sleep with him. And I remember in that moment when I was done sleeping with him, I never saw that appreciation. It was just like he was done and he left. And his other 2 friends threatened me. They were like, if I do not sleep with them, then I will die. And in that moment, the only thing that I had to do in order for me to escape that situation was for me to sleep with his other 2 friends. in that moment, that's when I saw myself not seeing myself as a valued woman. I started seeing myself dirty. I started seeing myself unworthy of life, unworthy of being in this world. And I remember when those guys were enjoying themselves, all I can think about is, Lord, have mercy, help me. And in that moment, it was midnight, I remember. And I just saw my life flashing back to those morals, what I was being taught when I came to the CBC. I didn't understand at first why those morals were there. But when I had that conversation with God, that's when I saw that the only way that I can live my life here on earth was for me to bring him back, to make him to be part of my life. And in the enjoyment that his friends had, all I can think about was just to come out of that room. And when they were done with what they did, they didn't care. They just chucked me out of the place. And I had to find my way home. Whilst I was walking afraid, in fear, because it was dark, all I can think about was the God of my mother. If you are there, please help me. And I remember when I got home, I knelt down and I asked God, God, give me a chance. Help me to come back to you, even though I do not know what to do. But may you help me, give me the strength for me to be able to start now to do what is right, to start now to put into practice what I have been taught in the Sunday school, what I have learned from my mother about having a relationship with God, about valuing myself as a woman. And that's when I decided to come to God. It was not easy because I was even ashamed of what had happened. The reason why I had to go through all that I had to go through was because I didn't listen to him. I wasn't paying attention to the guidance, to those values that through even the principles that I received from my mother, from even Sunday school. And now God had showed to me that the reason why you had to go through that was because you disregarded those values that you were taught. And now that he had given me a second chance, that's when I started now to apply myself with those principles, to apply myself now in starting to ask him to teach me now how to understand his word. I started to learn how to be a woman of God. And how I started to do that was, I remember when my mother gave me a book called Free Woman. And I started to learn how to value myself as a woman. I started now to learn how to behave myself, how to dress myself, because I never understood how can I be able to, dress myself as a woman of God, because I always used to wear tight stuff. So through the book, I was able to learn that I don't need to wear too wild in order for me to be appreciated. I was able now to learn how to say please and thank you, something that it was so difficult for me to do. I was able to learn how to respect my mom in times when it was not easy for me to receive that reprimand. At times it was so difficult when I was told the truth. I could not be able to humble myself. The person that I am today, I don't need to seek validation from people. I value myself the way that God had created me. I look at myself as a woman that is valuable, that is worthy, that is unstoppable, that is unshakable. A person that is rooted in God. And I appreciate the person that I am today I no longer need to prove a point of me being a woman, but I am able to appreciate everything that I am today. And it is through those values that I have been taught by my mother, even in Sunday school, that I am able to be confident and say, it is through those values that I am here today, and that I am not going to disregard anything because those values was able to maintain the person that I am today.
You relate to that one. It was one of the values you stood by.
Yes, I stood by the belief that I would only give myself when I'm married, and I would keep myself for marriage. And pressure is there. We should not say that it will be easy. It will never be easy, especially nowadays, because the values today are changing, not for young people only. The mature women, they are also in this journey of my truth, my values, and my way. And when I said, I'm going to wait to find the person that I'm going to marry and I'm going to give myself. And funny enough, friends, family, and even my stepfather, he would ask, what is happening with this girl who is in the age of teenager and is being now to the youth, and she doesn't want to date. She doesn't want to give herself to anyone. And my mother knew very well my decision. And that's how she would support me sometimes and giving me that encouragement. But it was one encouragement among many others who tried to persuade, to influence me to what do they think was the best. But today I reap the fruits and the happiness of being married and happy, and have to know only my husband, who I'm very pleased to be with, so was worth to keep. And also, Miss Marsha, I remember many girls who started like me in the journey of, we are going to keep ourselves because we have friends in our neighborhood. No, we are going to keep ourselves. We are going to only give ourselves when we are married. And they diverge. They succumb through the pressure, to the peer pressure by that time. And not long ago, one wrote for me saying, I wish I could have stood. Oh. And today she is not married anymore. She had a lot of relationships, and she's still in the version of trying to find herself. So one of the things that made me to remain was, I found myself very young, and that I remain, and I'm strong in this journey of, I'll keep myself for a purpose, and that's what should be.
And Precious, you said that now the values may be no value, or no one will influence me. But clearly, by the story of Patience, we see that she got upset with God, then she gave herself into relationship, after relationship, sleeping around, and at the end, what seemed to be freedom. My rules, my body, my rules, comfortable under my own skin, what else? Hashtag.
My body, my rules, I don't care. It's all about the body count, because now it's shocking.
Oh yeah, the body count.
It's shocking to find out that it used to be something men bragged about in the past. But today, no, women brag about it as well. And they actually ridicule those that decide that I'm going to wait. You are actually the one now that's the laughing stock. And that's why some decide to throw away this value and just say, you know what, if everybody is doing this, I am also going to take it up upon myself and just get rid of this. But not realizing that the truth is, some of them, while they are boasting and saying all of those things, they are just deflecting what is going on inside. And you are just a constant reminder of what values they have lost. And now they see you ripping the fruits of the values.
And you see that Patience, after being into so many relationships, she felt used. So what was in principle sold out as freedom brought that sense of I'm actually being used, so I have no value to anyone else. No one treasures me. So this is one of the values that it's not old-fashioned.
No, it's not.
It gives us so much value on our own. Now we are going to hear the story of
Tuli.
Tuli.
Hi, my name is Tuli Siven. The journey of my faith started at a very young age. So I learned a lot of values. When I came to church, I learned about faithfulness, I learned about respect, I learned about humility, I learned about how to, cultivate the relationship with God. As I grew in my faith, I noticed that by being faithful and maintaining a relationship with God, my life was growing. Everything around me was successful. In my career, I was seeing a lot of positive growth. And along the way, things started going wrong. I allowed negative influences, outside influences. I allowed, other people to challenge my faith, to challenge what I believed and what I had learned, during my journey in faith. It started small. It started with a debt here and there and making really poor financial decisions. And it got worse, all right? It got worse. At some point, I found myself in a very dark pit. I found myself not knowing how to manage my finances, not knowing how to make good decisions. Everything that I did was basically not resulting in a favorable situation for me. So as I observed my life going from worse condition to even worse condition, it got to the point where I could not even afford to buy food. For a very, very long time, I could not buy anything. I had to go back and, negotiate with my creditors. I had to, because I really could not afford anything. I think it took about a year when I was going through that situation of, getting paid and, month after month getting paid and not being able to even service all my debt. Got to the point where I think it took about a year for me to start reflecting. It took about a year of ups and downs about, what I wanted to do, what I was going through. It took a long time for me to start reflecting and, and when I thought about it, I reflected on my life. I really thought about what my life was like, and I asked myself that question, why do I find myself in this situation? At which point I then reflected back on the values. I reflected back on how my life was when I was faithful in my relationship with God. And that is when I thought I picked up that is where I messed up, that is where I went wrong. And then I decided to come back to my relationship with God. I decided to come back to my faithfulness in Him and, building my trust again in Him. Yeah, it started slowly. It was not easy because, you know, when you had convinced yourself that you are on the right track and you just carry on with your life and you just believe that you are okay. Being humble enough, and as I mentioned, that was the other value right at the beginning, that being humble enough to recognize that you have gone way out of the values. You have shifted and diverted away from what you had been taught. That it took time, but I was determined to recognize and to acknowledge that my relationship with God had suffered. And at that point, I then came back and then I grew. I decided I need to grow again. This is where the values really come to life, because if you come back to believe what you were taught and you know that this is the right way, so you decide to stick to that, and slowly but surely then your life starts changing again, and that's exactly what I did. It was not easy, but I was determined because I knew that that was the right thing to do and it was the right way to go. Who I am today, I have grown in my faith. I have grown in my faithfulness. I have grown in my resilience and my trust in God, because I saw that when I came back to my values, my life changed for the best. So today, I know exactly that I can never divert from my values. Today, I have seen the positive results of staying in the relationship with God, and I continue to do that, and I do believe that this is something that I am going to continue doing, because I have seen that it works, because I have seen the results of faithfulness to God.
So we see with Thuli's story, which I think a lot of our viewers might be watching and think that this is me. And sadly, I've had that personal experience with people close to me who got influenced by an idea, by a lifestyle, and saying, you know what, I've worked hard, I can actually enjoy the benefits. And they forget the importance of faithfulness, that faithfulness is total devotion. So we find a lot that say, no, but I'm also going to be faithful to myself. And we hear this value of the new fake value, spoil yourself, you deserve it, you are your own person, you are self-made. And we see with her, sadly, how she went from one situation to the next, and it just kept on getting worse. And I'm thinking of how many times as well people want to be in. They want to be part of the crew. They want to be part of society that says, I can do it as well. But not realizing that the financial steps you're taking sometimes don't measure up with what you have. And later on, you're the one that's left in debt. You're the one that's left frustrated financially because you've got no way out to go. And that only happened because she forgot of one value that was actually going to keep her and help her in life.
To be faithful and to be conscious about what I can and what I cannot do. You know, never to give a step bigger than what I can afford. And that was something that I learned from home. You are going to start working at a very young age. And in principle, in those days, we didn't need financially to have. I started work at the age of 13. Because my granny said, you need to know the value of money. And while you don't work hard to make your own money, you think that it comes easy and you can spend it easily. And by doing piece jobs, I would work in the afternoon after coming to school in the family business, and I would receive a small amount of money. And after receiving that small amount of money and comparing to all my needs, how much school was costing, the uniform, and what I wanted, and my treats as well, I realized that money doesn't come that easy. So she gave me this value that later on I found it in the Word of God.
And funny enough, as you're saying that, Ms. Marcia, it's something that we see today. People have lost the value of even the money that they have, because it's so easy today to just go into a shop and tap and swipe and
on credit.
And we see people living a lot of lives of credit. And I remember a few months ago, I saw one person that said, this is my day, my payday. I think they got paid about 80,000. And by the end of the day, the person was on a negative.
Oh my gosh.
And I was saying, but then when people are around that person, they are going out, they are buying lavish cars, they are going on holidays, they are purchasing apartments, not thinking of proper investment. You're just living for the here and now financially, not realizing that the debts, they don't live for here and now. They accumulate and they come back to bite you. And as you're speaking of the value of that, I remember when we were growing up, we were taught that, okay, you will get pocket money, but there were some chores that you would have to do for that. And we would never even spend that pocket money during the year because I had my lunch tin. At the end of the year, I remember when we had our first exercise, they took us to a toy store, a very famous toy store in South Africa. And I think we each had 200 rands. And then they said...
Back in the days, it was a lot of money.
Back in the day, it seemed like a lot. But the toys that we wanted
they were not 200.
They were not 200. And then they said, it's easy for you at the end of the year to come up with a list and say, this is what I want and this is what I don't want. So now we're giving you the freedom to be the one that buys what you need and what you want. And I remember going into the store and looking at the price tags like... No,
I don't have the money.
I don't have the money for this. Like, if I take this, then I won't get that and all of that. And I remember that being a very valuable lesson to me that, okay, you need to stay within your limits. Even when I got my first job, my mom had a talk with me and said, listen, you wait for what you need. You're not going to start debts because later on, when you need to progress with your life, you won't be able to progress because this is what's going to hold you back.
And these are godly values. Because how many people out there, they get into debts just like Tuli, because they don't see value in themselves. They project their value, they project their influence, their appearance in what they can buy. So if they feel better if they use something of a brand. But if they just use something that is simple without a brand, they don't feel as good. It means they project their value not in themselves. And that is totally opposite to God, because God teaches us to have value from inside out. And another thing that God does, God will never give you what you want unless it's aligned with His plan. He will give you what you need. And people think they need so much more than they actually need. So they don't find value in themselves. They project value in what they can afford, and many times they don't afford. They accumulate debts.
God will give us what we need. And most of those who are entering into debts now, because they want to give to everyone as well. So they project their values in what I can give. If precious is my friend, so it's not enough that I will have.
By friendship, né?
Yeah, so to have, I have that. But what about now if I gift her? Because now she's going to social media, she's going to say, look what Silmara gave to me. And that everyone will comment, wow, you have a nice friend. And there comes the debts. So it's not just about herself, it's about others as well, what she can buy, what she can provide, and give that step that she can't reach.
And I was just thinking of how these two values actually interlinked, the first one and this one, because we have a lot of young people getting into abusive relationships, all because she wants that bag, all because she wants to take a picture at that certain restaurant or at that certain destination. She knows she's not loved. She knows she's been used. But you hear, I remember I heard one saying, I'd rather cry in a Lamborghini than to cry than be happy in a Golf. And people went onto social media saying, yeah, that's true. And others, like, they started making jokes like, true. I'd rather be miserable in abundance than happy with the little that I have. And that's a value that actually unfaithfulness brings. It makes you forget the joy, the happiness, the home, and not the mansion. So in that, it makes them empty as well, because inside they have nothing.
And that is another value that as women we need to treasure. You know what it is? Sincerity. Because they may boast in social media. They may say, I'd rather be, what is the saying?
I'd rather cry in a Lamborghini.
I'd rather cry in a Lamborghini, but fact is that crying in a Lamborghini will be 5 minutes, an hour of the day. Then the beautiful photo. But the crying behind the scenes, the self-disappointment, the frustration, the sense of being used, not being loved, of loneliness, it's not projected in social media. No one goes there to social media to say, guys, let me tell you what, that was a pretense. I just put a smile to convince you. I'm not happy. And God teaches us to be transparent. We don't fake. If we are happy, we are happy. If we are sad, we are sad, because that value comes from God. You do not need to be what people expect you to be. You need to be who you are. And if there is something wrong, God will fix. God will make it right. That's another value that we treasure. Now I have a question, and I'm going to pick them, because I spoke one of the values that I learned from home, aligned with God, that kept me safe. Even when I went into debts, it was not my doing. My name was used by my ex-boyfriend. That's why I went into so many debts. But look what I was doing. I was living in a very abusive relationship. I didn't keep the values that I knew were from God to protect myself, to preserve myself. So it landed me in such a terrible situation. Now, which one of you would like to talk about a value that either you broke and then you repent, or you kept and that helped you in the journey?
I think for me it's humility. I come from, I won't say they're not even close to middle class. And I remember my mom being a domestic worker, and she always told me, never fake it when you're at school, because oftentimes when you'd be at school, when people would have a day where they ask what do your parents do?
Often.
And I remember for me, to my demise, I had one of our neighbors that would drive me to school because my mom couldn't. So they organized almost
like a pool of
parents. Parents. So when I would get there, and at that time there was also that fascination of, are you adopted? Because the person was Caucasian. And I remember I would get off and I'd be like, bye. And then the others would be like, is that your mom? Are you adopted? And I'd be like, no, I'm not adopted. My mom is at home. Oh, so what does your mother do? No, my mom is a domestic worker. And you would find, and it would be so funny because there was a group of us, there's 3 of us from the same street. And the others would be like, no, my mom is a doctor. My mom is this, my mom is that. And I would always think when I go back home, but why are you saying that? It's not something that you need to be ashamed of.
But were they lying?
Yes, they were lying because their parents were also fellow domestic workers.
As if there is any indignity in that.
As if there was indignity. And I remember always taking pride in that she works hard in order for me to have better than what she had. And it went so far as even people changing their names, making them more modern, more English. I had an English name. Sadly, my African name couldn't be used because they couldn't pronounce it in school, so they just stuck to Precious. And I remember that even growing up, my mom would always say, when we have, we have. When we don't have, we don't have. And you thank God for the little that you have. And that value, I think I even saw it from my grandparents. They had a very small house. All of us would always be gathered in that house. We'd never point to the house next door that's bigger and say, when your friends ask you in the street, like, oh, which house are you going to? Like, oh, no. Or when the taxi has to drop you off, you're going to ask them to pass and get off and then walk back. So that helped me even in my faith, because when you're Christian, it's not a bed of roses. You are ridiculed. You're told that you are old-fashioned. Who do you think you are? You think you're better. And I remember even as Seal was talking about when she was in school and she shocked the teachers. I think I shocked mine in grade 12 when we were doing career choices. And they kept saying, so what are you going to do? You can do anything. And I said, I'm inclined to volunteering in the church for a year. And from there, we will see where we're going. And I remember my classmates mocking me like, oh, you think you're a pastor's wife now? Who do you think you are? And I say, yes. And then one even went as far as saying, which church do you go to? And I said, the Universal Church. And then they came with the stories like, oh, that church this, that church that.
Yeah, they say we fly.
We fly and all of that.
Snakes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And they were like, maybe that's why you're passing so well, because you do witchcraft in your church and all of those things. It would go as far as sometimes they would come to the door of the church. And as I'm coming out from maybe the 6 a.m. service, then they'll be there like, ha, 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 Miss Universal, and all of that. But I knew why I was here. I knew what I was getting. And they would be the same people that laugh at you, but when they are sad, they come and talk to you in the bathroom. They come and say to you, you know, I'm going through this and this and this. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, because I had a shift. There was a time I was very naughty, and they saw the shift happen when I went back and fixed myself with God. And they asked me like, but why are you doing it? How are you doing it? And I said, because there is no value in what I am doing. Every night when I go home, I am crying because I know if I die tonight, I am going to hell. So there is no point in keeping up this pretense. So I'm thinking that it's something, humility has become one value that people throw away, that it's so easy to pretend.
Because it's easy today. There is a word that the youth uses. What is it? To flaunt.
Yeah, flaunting what you have.
To flaunt, to boast, to pretend, to show what you are not. However, everyone needs to go home. And there is that moment that you are alone. And you have to confront your reality. Your reality is not what you post in social media. Your reality is not the lie you talk to your friends. Your reality is your true life. Sue, you have the last viewer of today.
Yes, we have Rebecca. I think we can see her story now.
My name is Rebecca Lehasa, and growing up, my mom instilled values in all of her children. And one of the values that she instilled in us is that we should be independent thinkers. So we should not allow people to tell us what to conform to, but we should have that ability to think, weigh our options, and then take a decision, make a decision, so that we do not end up following a crowd. We do not end up doing what other people are telling us to do. This is what my mother taught us while growing up, that before you do anything, before you are influenced to do something, you need to first think, how is this going to impact me? How is it going to impact the people around me? And is this something that I really want to do, or is it something that I am being told to do because everyone else is doing it? I remember one of the values that she taught me, which is something I still carry to today. It is that for people to respect me, I have to respect myself. If I want people around me to take me seriously, I need to take myself seriously, which is one of the values that I let loose a little bit on that. That's something that I lost. Another thing, she did teach me that yes, when people advise you, when people show you, oh, this is the way of life, not to actually attack, but to say, yes, I respect what you are saying, I see what you are telling me, but unfortunately, I cannot do that because, and then I bring my thoughts to the table as well. Another thing that she taught me, she taught us quite a lot actually. Another thing that she taught us as siblings is that we, as I said, we need to be people that think. Even if you do not feel like doing something, you need to think before. So basically, use your brain to think and not your emotions to think. So I remember back in high school, this is something that I'll never forget because it had a huge impact on me. So in grade 9, right, everyone goes through that phase of having to choose subjects. So I was that student that got 90s in every single subject. And I did not quite think of what I wanted to be. So this is where now my mother's value, I lost it. I didn't think and I didn't take my choices seriously. And it happened that the people around me didn't take my choices seriously. So that phase came where I had to choose, do I want to choose the science path or do I want to take the commerce part? And I remember in a parents' meeting, the teacher was not listening to me because I kept saying, but I don't want to choose science. And then she's like, but you're good in everything. Take everything, mix everything. Take the commerce and take the science as well. You're going to be something great. But I knew, but listen, I thought about this. I don't like science. It's not really practical for me. It's not something, I don't want to be sitting in a lab doing chemistry. I want to see how our economy works out. I'm involved in the economy, so I would like to pursue something within those boundaries. And my teacher didn't take me seriously. She's like, oh, you don't know anything because you are good at everything. And I allowed her to come into my mind. Even though I knew what I wanted, I didn't respect my own choices, my own thoughts, my own research that I had made. And I actually went against that. And I ended up, I told my mom, since my teacher said I should take all of the subjects, I'm going to take all of them. Following year, sort of, I was getting my 90s as usual, until it started backsliding. Because science, and I was like, I don't like this. But I'm stuck here because I can't change the subjects now. It's still early in the year. And I started bunking the classes. I remember bunking the classes because it was not interesting. I didn't find it interesting. It's not something I wanted to pursue. So going and attending the classes felt like a waste of time. I was dragging my feet. I was always late. If I'm not late, I'm back chatting the teacher. Now I'm forgetting what my mother taught me. To respect myself and to respect all those around me. Started forgetting all of that because why? I didn't want to be there. And I failed to articulate that and stand actually on my decision. And moving from not attending classes regularly, I was someone who was always because I was getting 90s, I now started decreasing in my grades. And as a result, I was no longer in the top 5 of the grade. It went on, I was no longer in the top 20 of the grade. It ended up where I failed a term, actually, because of the science. And my mom had to be called in to school. We had a meeting with my grade head and she advised, listen, she's not doing very well. The teacher is having a problem with her. And now my mom looks at me when we get home. She's like, what did I teach you? And now I had to remind her, but listen, you guys didn't listen to me. And now she's reminding me, but I taught you to stand. When you have thought of something, I taught you that you need to stand on it. No matter who tells you what, you know why you wanted to do that. Do you know that feeling, not just that feeling, when everyone has, or when everyone knows that whatever, even if we all fail, that there will always be that one person who's going to pass. I was that person. So now when I'm not doing so well, people are talking and they're not talking behind my back, they're talking right at me, in front of me. They're like, oh, you used to be someone who we knew, that one is gonna pass. We used to be someone we knew, even when I need help, I can go to her. She's the go-to person. She's always that person I look up to when I think I can't pass. And I think that's when it hit me that I used to be someone who was a hard worker. I used to be someone who you knew I will always be at the class even if the whole class decides to bunk. I will be there. But now I'm part of the people who are banking. For me, it felt like I betrayed myself because I wasn't that kind of person. I was someone who, it really hit me hard when the top 20 was being called and I'm not part of them. I remember back in school, we used to be invited to prize giving. When I went to that notice board and I didn't see my name, it hit me that this is the first time in my academic journey that I am not invited to a prize giving, which for me it felt like, oh, this is so embarrassing. So I changed the subjects. I remember, even though I had changed, I remember that I was disrespectful to my science teacher. And that value again, I remembered, I need to respect myself and respect everyone else around me. So I had to go back to the teacher and count each and every single thing I did wrong. Even the ones that he didn't know, he was very shocked that day. He's like, oh, so you did this. So this is what you would do in my class. This is all of the things that you would do behind my back. Now you are confessing. Why are you confessing? And I told him that I can't start on a clean slate, but there's still something that I haven't resolved. I owe you an apology. So I first had to align my values properly so that I know that I fixed everything and now I can work towards what I wanted to achieve. And I started working hard. I changed the subjects and I assured my mom that you don't have to push me, you taught me. I remember your teachings. You have to be confident in me here. You have to give me the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to work hard and I'll prove, let me show you. I remember telling my mom, let me show you. Let me show you what I can do. Let me show you what I'm capable of. And I remember in the first term, both of those subjects were in the 70s. And she was impressed. She was like, oh, okay, I see you're working back your reputation. I got back into the top 20. I was not in a high position, but when my name was called, my classmate sitting next to me in the school was like, oh, Miss Lahasa's back, I see. For me, that was like, yeah, now I'm moving in the right direction. Now I'm doing something. I'm fixing slowly by slowly. It's not going as fast as I wanted it to go, but it is moving somewhere. I need to be confident that it's going to work. I need to stand and fight for it. And I fought. I ended up back into the top 5. I ended up with being one of the best students in accounting. And today, I am working in a job that I'm not even qualified in because of keeping the value of if you want something, you will fight for it, which is something my mom taught me. I'm the youngest in the department because I learned if I respect myself, I respect others around me. So I sat in places that I do not belong because I kept my mother's values. That even if people my age are doing a certain thing, I was taught a different way. And I have to keep that. Not because it is what my mother taught me, but because I need to see how it is going to help me in future. And it is actually helping me now.
So we have now Rebecca, who sadly enough gave in to the emotions and to the influence of a teacher. And I was comparing with my story as well. And the teacher tried to influence me to choose something else other than to do the work of God. And many are not strong enough to say, this is what I want. Even when they come, it's like they have a luggage with all the values. We go to school, we go to this world with our values in our luggage by our pack back, and suddenly people start to take it away from you and you get to be lost. And in this situation of Rebecca, she started to decide to do things career, and sadly they waste time in this journey because they start, they enroll in a course and suddenly it's not what they want. And they are influenced and they have to go back in time and start all over again. So we believe that everything changed we see in her story that she realized, I cannot be taken by my feelings. I cannot be taken by my emotions. I need to remember back and pick, the value that my mother gave to me that was, do what you want to do and you are comfortable to do. Don't just go with the flow. And we see, there is a saying that is very disturbing my mind when I hear fake until you make it. And I never...
What are you gonna make if the principle, the starting point, it was a lie?
So probably Rebecca was faking, like she speaks about it. She goes and she gets late because she didn't want to go to that course. She didn't want to be there. So she was faking. But sadly enough, what people, they don't really say, this saying, faking until you make it, you don't make it by the end. You don't make it. And people hide this truth. So they pretend with my mother does this, but she's not really doing that. But the truth is always the truth. So your feelings can wave. But when you put your mind, because she speaks about when she put her brain to work and she stopped to be influenced, then everything changed. And she came back to the course that she wants, and today she's happy. She doesn't need to fake. She made it, but she started in the right way after coming out of this cycle of emotions and feelings and being influenced by others.
And I think she's one of the few that are able to actually rectify it, because there are many that, because they spend so much time faking it, years go by and later on you can't go back. You don't maybe have the financial resources to start all over, and they end up settling for anything. And the saddest part is, at the back of their mind, they are always reminded of the moment that they were faking it. And as you said, they never made it, because there's a vast difference between being inspired and working towards your goal rather than faking it. Because faking it is coming up and saying, I'm okay, I'm doing it, I'm happy, rather than the person that says, I really love what I'm doing. Because when challenges come, they stand for those challenges. But when you're faking it, sooner or later, you're going to quit.
So now that we spoke a little bit about such values, and we would have so many more values to explore, I hope our viewers understood why we say our motto is, where values are treasured. Why?
Because we are nothing without value, if you think of it. Because there's something you touched base on earlier. You said people say they don't have values, but they are valuing someone else's values who has decided to throw them out. But with Women to Women, from the get-go and from day one, the one value has always been the core values of God, what He expects from us as women. And that has been the drive in bringing all of these wonderful stories that we're hearing. Because maybe one is looking and saying, oh, it's great, I saw the other viewers, maybe it was a long time ago, but this can be your moment. This can be the day that you're going to say, okay, you know what? I am dropping all of this madness. I am leaving behind this lack of values that I think I'm living by.
Transparency?
Yes, and I'm going to be transparent and say, it's not working. But here I am watching this show, listening to these people who are saying, there is a way out, and I'm going to start embarking on it. Because we are not sitting here pretending. We are not here saying, oh no, everything is rosy, everything is great and all of that, or putting up a facade, which is what we see a lot out there. Even with, I can imagine maybe how many people, if we were to lose our value as Women to Women, would come in and say, okay, let's change the entire concept to make it more popular, to make it this, to make it that. But that did not happen here. It remained with the core value that was treasured, which was to inspire other women, but inspire them with what? With true values that are biblical, not outdated, very current, because at the end of the day, we always go back and see how relevant everything that God has said is today.
So as a matter of fact, you might think that we are upholding values of our own. And as Women to Women, we are going to tell you values that we hold dear. Fact is, they are not our values. They are God's values in us and through us. And today, I want to share with you two of these godly values. Let us read together Micah 6:8. Maybe you say Micah Yes, there is a book in the Bible, in the Old Testament, by the name of Micah. And maybe you never read it. But look what it said here. He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. So, 3 very important values. To act out of justice, and we can say, be just towards others. But justice has to start towards yourself. If you need to compromise your dignity, if you need to compromise your character, if you need to compromise your identity, you're being unfair to yourself. God does not expect that from us. All the work that God does, it starts within us. I can only share, I can only give, I can only be pleasant if first God has worked inside of me. Then he says, love mercy. Out there is a trend that you are the one who matters. Disregard people's opinions, disregard people's needs, value yourself, protect yourself. But God says, don't be selfish. Have mercy towards others. Take other people's needs and motives into account and walk humbly with God. That for me is one of the greatest values that all of us, women and men alike, need to uphold. Because when we learn the way of humbleness, we will never fall into the trap that we feel better, that we are better, that we are the it thing. Because God makes us to see how dependent we are from Him. And if we have any success, if we can show direction to anyone, if we can become a reference, the glory is not ours, it is His. And giving Him back the glory makes us to be protected, not to lose ourselves in our own will, in our own ways. So, to wrap up, to treasure values, it means, first of all, to treasure yourself. There is no greater value before God than our soul. So whatever we do to others, we need to start with being honest to ourselves. And maybe right now you have realized how you have drifted from the dreams you once had, from the purpose that you once had, from the dignity that you held about yourself. And you may think there is no way to go back to. There is. That's why we had these beautiful women sharing with us today what they did to come back to God and how they live today. You can be our next testimony. That's why I'm going to ask Silmara to pray that from today on, you don't embrace the values of woman to woman, but you embrace godly values in your life. Let us pray.
My Lord, in the name of Jesus, we present to you, my Father, the life of these women who right now, after listening to the testimonies, to our story as well, they see they need to change. They need to uphold by the values that you have been showing to them. And my Lord, we know this journey is not easy. We are not here saying to them that it will be smoothly, will be a bed of roses. We know it will be hard, my Father, but we believe with your help, we believe this woman is sincere before you to say, I need a change. We know it's never too late. For you, time is not a problem. Age, nothing is important when this person decides to give to you their wrongdoings, they decide to surrender to you the influence that this world brought to them, and they uphold your values, my God. So give them this new beginning where they are going to start mirror their lives according to your word, where they are going to only consider your voice and shut the voice of this world, the influence that they hear out there in school, at work, and even, my God, inside of their house, and they are going to follow just your voice. So give this woman strength, because we believe through this program, you are going to reach out many that are in need to give a turnaround in their life and recover who they are before you, my God. So that's why we bless all of them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Woman to woman, where values are treasured.
So from today on, you can become this woman who will start valuing yourself. If you value yourself the way that God values you, you will make sound decisions, perfect choices, in spirit, and you are going to be much happier. God bless you all. Until next week, bye-bye.
The first step to healing is simply reaching out. If you or someone you know needs support, email woman2woman@uckg.org.za or call 0800 330 320. Our toll-free helpline offers confidential, non-judgmental support.